Good evening. I'm Natasha Chogtai.
I'm Reginald Jones. Thank you for joining us. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be taking a trip down memory lane, looking back at 60 years of history here at WTVY. It's a history that's seen quite a bit of change over the years, including equipment, our location, and even our original channel. Now, WTVY signed on the air on Saturday, February 12th, 1955 at 4:30 p.m. After the Star-Spangled Banner and a live invocation by Dr. Samuel Maddox, viewers watched the first show in the history of the station, Raymar of the Jungle. On March 24th, 1955, WTVY became the CBS affiliate for the Wiregrass. In the first year, all commercials were broadcast live with black and white studio cameras. In the station's very first commercial, a local RCA Victor dealer who sponsored the test pattern. The original station had a 400-foot tower and just 6 employees. Well, it didn't take WTVY long to get into the local news business. Just 1 year after turning on the transmitter, WTVY began a 15-minute local news program each night, following CBS television news with Douglas Edwards. When CBS expanded to 30 minutes in September of 1963 with Walter Cronkite, WTVY followed suit, moving to 30 minutes of local news programming. And we've come a long way since then, expanding from one 30-minute newscast to 30 hours of live news every week.
WTVY originally broadcast its signal on Channel 9. That all changed on New Year's Day 1961 as WTVY swapped channels with WTVM in Columbus, Georgia. On that day, WTVY became Channel 4, where it still resides today. At the same time, WTVY made its first physical move, leaving the original studios off Cottonwood Road for a new facility on Highway 52 in Webb. The tower also grew substantially, jumping from 400 feet to over 1,200 feet above the ground. That wasn't the last move WTVY would make in its history. More than 30 years later, the station packed up again, this time relocating to the heart of Dothan. In February of 1993, WTVY moved into the old Houston Hotel on North Foster Street. Former owner Charles Woods renovated the building, and WTVY moved in, giving the station a central location in the heart of the biggest city in the Wiregrass.
It brought us into the forelight, if you will, of people, everybody driving around Dothan. They saw this building with WTVY letters on the top. And I guess maybe for the first time they saw that we were big time.
In that same year, a series of ownership changes would also begin for WTVY, with first Benedict Broadcasting and eventually Gray Television serving as owners. Gray TV still owns the station today.
The employees and shows are not the only things to change at WTVY over the years. Equipment has dramatically changed. After more than a decade of black and white programming, WTVY purchased its first color camera in 1966 from WMSA in New Orleans. Over the years, we've changed that format many times, and now all of our video is shot and edited digitally. Cars also changed as the decades rolled by, from a fleet of Volkswagen Beetles to the more modern group you see on the roads today. Even the way we put a newscast on the air is very different, going from an operation that required several people to our setup today, which allows one director to control the entire show. One of the biggest upgrades in station history took place in 2003 when WTVY began carrying CBS programming in high definition. And in 2012, WTVY flipped the switch to become HD in news and local programming as well. Now, these moves required millions of dollars in upgrades to equipment, allowing WTVY to bring the best signal to its viewers.
Coming up, we'll sit down with some of the most recognizable faces in WTVY history to look back on the biggest moments of the station.
Also, we'll pay tribute to some of the names and faces who are no longer with us. We're celebrating the lives of those who've passed on when our 60th anniversary special returns.
Hello, WTVY family. This is meteorologist Ashley Brand. I cannot believe that it has been 7 years since I've been there. I spent a wonderful 5.5 years at WTVY. I love Dothan, I love the people, and it was the station that really made everything fantastic. It really was and still is a very close-knit family. I still talk to everybody that I worked with, Reg, Brad, Angie, love everybody. We had such a wonderful time.
And I learned so much. You know, we were a family there at the station. Many people don't know that, but behind the scenes, we really did look out for each other. And I'm so elated that it has been around for 60 years, and I'm looking forward to the next 60 years. Love you all and miss you.
Congratulations on being a great part of the community all of these years, and such a main influence with entertaining, keeping people informed in the Wiregrass and the Florida Panhandle. I was proud to play part of that role for the decade that I was there, and just wish everybody on the staff and all of the viewers out there much success, and just happy anniversary and congratulations.
Over the years, many of the names and faces that have graced the WTVY airwaves have come to feel like family. If you heard some of those former employees say, they came into our living rooms every night, bringing us news, weather, sports, and daily farming reports.
And as the years have passed, some of our most recognizable names have left us. Here's a look at some of the biggest names from WTVY who have passed on.
Charles Woods was one of the most unique people I've ever met. Mr. Woods wound up buying out the other partners because he wanted to do it his way. Mr. Woods he thought outside the box. And Mr. Woods had the forethought to put the big tower down in Florida so that we would reach Northwest Florida. Mr. Woods was so generous. He was a kind man.
Wow, Jerry Van was such an influence on my career. He was a great news director and a great mentor of mine. I can remember Jerry would always look for the biggest story, whatever the breaking news story was, and he gave the young guys and girls at the station an opportunity to get out and cover those stories and really learn the news business from the ground up.
Jerry Van was one of the best friends I ever had. There was this gruff, bossy outside. There was this gentle, sweet inside. I truly love Jerry Van, and I truly miss him. Joe Earl Holloway was a character. But right before he got so sick with the melanoma, he was my director, and he knew me and I knew Joe. Just my friend.
Gene Reagan was a man that once he became your friend, he was your friend. Gene Reagan imparted a lot of great information to farmers. It wasn't just an entertaining show. It imparted good information on telling them how to farm, how to make a living at it, and all these things. He had great guests on, so he did everything he could to make sure that the farmers succeeded.
That's Mr. Wade Andrews. We'll be back in a moment with the farm news.
But Gene was just so great, a great friend. I really miss Gene. The farming news has not been the same since he departed from here.
Now all I want to see is old Gene and me on Channel 4 on the Gene Reagan Show. Gene Reagan Show.
John was very old school journalism, kind of the Ted Baxter, if you will, to a degree of WTVY, but a lot of fun. And it took a little warming up for both of us, and we got along swell afterwards. He and I did a lot of things, you know, covered a lot of stories together, and he's just a great guy, and he is missed.
Obviously, he was a legend in the Wiregrass. I often teased him and called him the godfather of local sports.
Well, just for the folks who are hearing this, anything you've heard about Al is absolutely true. I mean, he is one of those guys where I can't think of anything in a non-positive role to talk about.
He was just one of those great people, so much fun, great sense of humor, loved to play jokes on people. He made coming to work and sitting there and doing that newscast so much fun.
Al would always make us laugh. That was the best thing about Al. He never had a harsh word towards anybody. He was always laughing and keeping us laughing.
I mean, he really was just the best at knowing when you needed to maybe have a laugh, or maybe when you just needed to sit and listen, or maybe when he needed to share some words of encouragement.
WTVY TV and WTVY Sports, it is Al Roberts, and it remains that today. He laid the groundwork that made it all possible for those of us who came after him.
Hi, Dothan, Alabama, and the Wiregrass. It's been a long time since I've seen you guys. I just wanted to say that congratulations to WTVY for making the 60th anniversary. And what an honor it was to be part of it. Growing up in the Wiregrass, I was so fortunate that I could get my start in journalism, in broadcast journalism and TV news right there in my hometown, the 30-minute drive from where I grew up from my childhood home. And that's something that many people work for in this business. All their life is to go back home, and I was fortunate enough to get my start there.
Greetings, Dothan. It's been about 3 years since I've been in town, but I heard you're celebrating a 60th anniversary, and I couldn't miss that. So I figured I'd stop by and say hello to everybody and congratulate the station on 60 wonderful years. So many faces have come and gone in the time here, myself 5 years, and it's really where I got my feet wet and a little bit muddy at times.
Sitting next to Reg Jones every evening, bringing the Wiregrass the news you needed to know, and the groundbreaking What's Good in the Neighborhood series was pure joy every day. It's an opportunity for which I'm eternally grateful. I still do catch the broadcast online, and I'm proud to have called WTVY my home. To name all of you at WTVY and the Wiregrass who taught me something would exceed the length of this broadcast. But one thing is for certain, for 60 years you've all made news worth watching. Keep up the great work, and I wish you another 60 more as the Wiregrass news leader. Happy birthday.
Well, we wanted to take a moment to kind of reminisce and go back and look at some of the past personalities of WTVY. I'm joined by my former co-anchor, Angie Casey. Also sitting around this table are just a number of people who have contributed tremendously to the success of the station. We want to thank the Dothan Opera House for giving us this venue to do that today.
Absolutely.
So, tell us about your time at TVY. And,
oh my goodness.
How wonderful everything was.
Oh, it was.
Yes,
it absolutely was. Well, I guess the biggest thing that sticks out in my mind when I came to WTVY was, I think it was 1996. My kids were kindergarten and first grade. We came to Dothan not knowing a single soul. So came into WTVY and immediately just had that family feeling, that sense of family. And the management was just very warm and friendly. And I basically raised my children in the newsroom, and you can attest to that. After you came on board, I mean, they were up there. Al Roberts would call out spelling words for both of my children. Brad Sherwood would do math problems with my son, and they actually, everybody had a great influence on my children, and so I'll be forever grateful for that.
A great family atmosphere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps the person that probably can give us more historical perspective on WTVY than anyone else sitting around this table is John Goss.
Well, I started back when we were Channel 9. Yeah, back in the old days out on the Cottonwood Road. We were Channel 9 out there. I think they got on the air in February of '55, and I came in July of '57. And so we were over there at Channel 9, 4 or 5 years altogether. And it's by the television station now. Of course, it was located on the Cottonwood Road, close to the Farm Center. And somewhere around 1960-ish, they approached them about the idea of doing a three-way swap to get Channel 9 to Columbus, Georgia, and give us Channel 4. And so Mr. Busby and Mr. Woods and them agreed to that, and so they decided to make the swap. So they went out to the highest hill in Houston County, the other side of Webb, well out of Dothan, to build a TV station. So don't bring the
the tower to the TV station, bring the TV station to the tower. But anyway, that's the main reason they went out to web and started Channel 4, and we got all of their equipment. They gave us all of their equipment and money and some other things for us to switch over to Channel 4. And that swap took place, so in 1961, I believe it was, right at the first of the year, is when we started on our new television station, Channel 4, WTVY, in Webb, Alabama. And that's how we got out there. And of course, we really got a lot more people to watching WTVY by making those technical switches that we did and moving from those location to location. So that's why we moved around quite a bit as far as television stations and cable, or beg your pardon, or the towers were concerned. And that gives you a little bit of the technical perspective about WTVY and where we went from and to.
And tell me, John was sharing with me earlier before we came on that he was actually the one that hired you.
Yes, he was.
And rehired
me, yes.
How'd that come about?
Well, I began working with TVY in 1974, and I started at TVY FM as a sales rep. And I worked the board on the weekend, so you can imagine, you know, me. Well, anyway, I was playing country and western music, so
I actually got my start in broadcasting, spinning country music.
Well, yeah, it was enjoyable.
It was fun.
So, you know, then I took a short break and I started going to college. And John came down and found me in Marietta, and he said, "Well, you want to come back?" So we talked, and I decided, well, yeah, I will. So I came back and I started working on the floor as a cameraman, you know, and then I talked with Ann and I became real close friends, and Ann said, well, you want to go to the news side? And I said, yeah, I'd like to do that, I think, and I've never done that before. And so she went and talked to Jerry Van. So Jerry agreed to hire me, you know, and so all thanks to John Goss and Ann Varnum.
You threatened to quit if you didn't get a better position.
Again.
I didn't want to lose you. I prayed a lot and talked to Jerry.
Yeah. So you know, I began on the news side, and I really enjoyed everything that we did. John mentioned that, you know, the tower went up in Boniface, so we had a good signal in Northwest Florida. So I worked the entire sector from Tallahassee all the way to Pensacola at times. Wherever news occurred, that's where I went.
I understand some of the fun times, though, out there at the old station was when you guys had wrestling out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. One of the things were the wrestlers, we were supposed to call them wrestlers, we would leave everything unlocked. Back in those days, we trusted everybody. And Susan Tatum had a sewing kit in her desk drawer. She was one of our, we wrote promos and things like that.
Right.
And some of them decided they wanted to get blood, so they would go and take her sewing kit and take those razor blades and nick the top of their scalp so that when the other one blood would come.
You're outing wrestling now. Wait a minute.
Oh no, I'll get sued. Okay. But the thing about it is, it was bad enough that it scared the people, but it made Susan so mad they messed up her sewing kit. Right. She was ready to go. She was ready to go attack the wrestlers. That's right.
Well, the studios there were built in Webb. Were built primarily because Mr. Busby knew that wrestling was really popular in Pensacola, Florida, which is where he came from. So when we built the station out there at Webb, it was built a lot bigger than the one, of course, over on the Cottonwood Road. And one of the primary things was so we could bring wrestling to the Dothan area. And so we had the largest studio actually in the state of Alabama at that time. And so we did wrestling, we did Jim and Jesse and the Virginia boys and the Florida boys. We did a lot of live because we didn't have any tape back.
Bobby Jones and the Pine Valley boys.
Right. A lot of different people played there and did a lot of things there, and so we thoroughly enjoyed that. But nevertheless, that's what we did in those days, and the wrestling was very, very popular. Thousands of people every weekend at the Farm Center. We had Bob Howell doing it, and we had one Al Roberts doing it. But Al didn't like wrestling. He didn't want to do wrestling. So then is when I taught Bob Howell to do the wrestling. See, and Bob went on to WSFA Channel 12, as we all know, and he told him one day up in Auburn, Alabama, at a seminar up there, he said, I really loved living in Dothan. I didn't want to leave Dothan. I love to do the live wrestling. So wrestling was very, very contagious here in Dothan, Alabama, Reggie.
All right.
It really was.
I understand you guys all had live animals in there from time to time.
Yeah.
As well, right?
We sure
How'd
did.
that work
She
out?
can tell you
Yeah.
about those.
Yeah.
Now. Ann can tell you all about those.
Oh, yes.
Gene Reagan Farm Show.
They also brought the rattlesnake rodeo. They came and one day a rattlesnake got loose in the studio. And so even though people were looked for, you know, we had curtains and we had a huge, nobody wanted to go into the studio. Well, Warren Bardoff was one of our engineers, Tom, and he came in right after the show. They finally caught the rattlesnake. Okay, they caught the rattlesnake. We were all relieved. But what they did not move was one of those guys had put a huge stuffed rattlesnake ready to spring, you know, on my little coffee table. And we went to get coffee. It was over. The show was over. So Warren goes in, and he's going to adjust one of the cameras. So he unfolds his tools, does not even look at. He thinks it's a flower arrangement on my table because that's what usually is there. And he's already heard the rattlesnake had been in there, and he looks up, and that snake is. He just screams bloody murder, and almost passes out. Well, we run in there. We think the rattlesnake is. There's another one, and they got him. But he said, if you ever do that again, I said, I didn't do it. I didn't know that you were going to.
And what about the big hog that got loose?
Oh, yes.
Tell them about that one, Ann.
Gene Reagan would have the show live at lunch, and they would bring real animals. My office was close to the end of the building, and so one day, the big hog decided he didn't want to go up on the truck. So he bolted, ran down the hall, and came into my office. And so Ann Adams was in there talking to me, one of our salespeople. She jumped in the chair, started screaming. Well, I wasn't afraid of the pig. So the pig comes over, and I have all my recipes laying on the floor. I didn't have much room. So he's rooting around in my recipes as if he's going to make a cake or something. And so I'm scratching his head. Well, Gene comes in. You know what a gentleman he was.
Yes.
He took off his head. He said, hold me, saying, don't touch him, don't touch him. I said, I've already been petting him, Gene. And he said, oh, he may hurt you. I said, no, he won't. And so anyway, it took forever because he was so huge.
Right.
And there was not that much room. He'd gotten in. It took them 3 men to turn him around and head him back out. But Jerry Van said that the hog had come to my office for prayer because he didn't want to wind up being a frosty morn.
But I tell you, one of my fun memories was going over to Atlanta, Georgia, when I was doing the program Community Focus, to interview Evander Holyfield.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Because I always loved to watch him box. And so we had the opportunity of going over there, and we had such a good time. It was Brenda Steffen and some other people from the station. Names don't come to me real quick here, but anyway, we had a great time over in Atlanta. We had a great time in Atlanta interviewing him.
One of the Commodores tried to date you.
Oh, really?
I protected you.
Yeah, you protected me, but he really did. Yeah, he really did. They were here for the National Peanut Festival. They were here for the National Peanut
and we went
Festival.
out to interview him.
Right, yeah. And he was very persistent. Yes, he was. But it was a good interview.
You know, one of the beautiful things about TVY that I've noticed, and just in my tenure here, are the relationships that you build and how they last. They're really lifelong.
Yes.
Right. And Andy,
I think all of us can attest to that.
Excuse me, you started live at lunch, which was a whole new thing for us.
I did. I started that, I don't know how many years ago. It's been now 7 or 8 years ago, a couple of years before I left the television station, just as a way to have, kind of a throwback to the earlier years where you could have more conversations and a little bit more talk about, things that were important for the day or whatever. So that was a fun program to do, and we took it live to, various locations and had a good time.
That's
doing
so important.
That was instrumental,
yeah.
And it's still with us today.
I know. I hear people going, I'm going to be on Live at Lunch, and I always think, and the way that name came about was because of Dorothy, the receptionist, and I was telling her about my idea about this new show, and she said, well, are you going to be on Live at Lunch? And I went, That's the name of the show. Yes, it's live at lunch, and so I had to credit her.
She's such an integral part of the station. She is.
So I credited her with the name of that program.
Rachel, tell us when you came aboard.
It's been so long, Anna.
Oh,
I was there already.
I was a little boy when I came to the
Jeff
station.
Raker brought you here.
He did.
That was in
December of '97 that I actually started. I moved here from Huntsville. I had never been to Dothan other than prior to that to interview for the job, and I never envisioned me staying here for any length of time. My plan was to come here and stay 2 years, and of course we all know that my 2 years is still running. So here it is, 17, almost going on 18 years later.
Yeah,
and,
that's
unbelievable. And I'm still here, but this is it for me. I mean, this is a wonderful place to be, a great station to work for, and the folks here in the Wiregrass area are just super. Well, you know, we could sit around and do this all day, but unfortunately, time will not allow us to do that. I do appreciate all of you taking time out of your schedules to just kind of share some of this with our audience. It's been fun.
It has been fun.
Let's do it again in the next 60
and
years.
You remember,
right? Can we do it again?
You remember too. I can't let it go without saying, you know, the people that are no longer with us, like John Williams and Al Roberts, and just what special people they were.
Joe Holloway,
yes,
my director, Wayne Register,
and Jeff Raker,
Yeah.
and I mean,
yeah.
we can go on. Jerry Van, of course, yes.
Oh, Jerry Van. I thought I'd never get over it when he died.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, guys.
Okay. Thank you. It was great being here.
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
Like I say, let's do it again in the next 60.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks.
I was so fortunate to spend 9 of my years being a weatherman there, covering so many great weather events. For those of you who don't know, WTVY was my very first job, and why the folks there gave this young man right out of college a chance to work there, I still don't know, but I'm very grateful.
Truly, it was the people that made the job special. The athletes, coaches, and fans I got to cover, and the viewers I'd meet. Also, the newsroom was like a family, and I got to work with some very special people, namely Reginald Jones, Angie Casey, Brad Sherwood, and of course, the late Al Roberts, who gave me my start in the business.
It was amazing because WTVY is a special place because it has the mix of a small market station and a more medium to larger market station as well. And there's just so many opportunities for someone young to come in and be able to do so many different things.
And WTVY represents some of the best years of my life. Being an Enterprise native, I was so blessed to be able to start my television career at the TV station that I grew up watching. There is no doubt this station is an asset to the Wiregrass area, and I am so lucky and so blessed to have worked there. Happy 60th anniversary, WTVY, and here's to 60 more.
Well, there's no question WTVY has come a long way over the past 60 years, from 17 hours a day of test pattern to 24-hour programming every day of the year.
Technology has also grown and changed over the years, and we're not done growing. We've got several projects in the works you'll be seeing in the near future. Some of those changes are required by the FCC, such as improved closed captioning for both hearing and visually impaired viewers, as well as a text delivery for messages from the emergency alert system.
We're also looking at ways to bring you even more live news and sports productions. That means continuing to upgrade our equipment with new vehicles, new types of cameras, and editing software, and the ability to be mobile with our production to bring you the biggest stories as they happen from where they're happening. But one thing has not changed over the years and will remain a constant. That's our promise to continue to provide the best local and network programming to the Wiregrass on a daily basis. That's going to wrap it up for us and the 60th anniversary special.
Thank you for joining us, and good night.